Good evening. Will the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, November 6, 2019, please come to order? For the benefit of those who may not have participated in a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, our procedures are as follows. 1, the Secretary will read the legal call of the meeting as published in local newspapers. 2, the applicant will be invited to come forward and present the case, explaining to the Commission and others present what is being requested of this property. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application, if there are any. There will be clarifying questions from the Commissioners. 3, there will then be the opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. First, those who wish to support the application can come forward, and second, those who oppose the application will then be invited to come forward. As this is a public hearing, it must be recorded. It is necessary for speakers to identify themselves, state their name and address before addressing the Commission. 4, the applicant is then free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearing and regular meeting, at which time the Commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of this Commission and has the right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. 5, decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Office, 453-8039, after 9 a.m. Seated this evening, Michael Basso on the end, Scott Edmonds, Matt Yersinski. I'm Phil Johnson, Alan Brown, Jason Marchi, Jamie Stein, and Frank DeAndrea. As Matt rolled in, Jamie, you will be our alternate this evening. Okay? Staff present this evening are George Krall, our town planner, and Lisa Piombino, recording secretary. The videographer this evening is Peter Schultz. The secretary will now read the legal notice.
Legal notice, Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on November 6th, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. at location Nathaniel B. Green Community Center, 32 Church Street, Guilford, Connecticut, Monocatuck Room, 2nd floor, for the following purposes. Daniel Earl, 18 Edwin Court, map 93, lot 46, zone R8, special permit per section 273-36A to construct a detached unheated garage with attic storage. Daniel Earl, 18 Edwin Court, map 93, lot 46, zone R8, special permit per section 273-19 to construct a detached accessory apartment to be used as a pool house with exterior covered terrace. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the office of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Town Hall South, 50 Boston Street, Guilford, Connecticut. At this hearing, persons may attend and be heard, and written communications will be received. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, this 15th day of October, 2019. Phil Johnson, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Let's see, public hearing items. Michelle Ladano, 18 Graves Ave, map 40, lot 18, zone R1, special permit application per section 273-13C to change one non-conforming commercial/industrial use to another non-conforming use as a two-family residence in an R1 zone for a total of 3 residential units on the property. Is Michelle here?
I did meet with the Historic Commission, as you all know. It went very well, and we were very appreciative of the recommendations that they had given, and their offer to continue with this project as we go and further make recommendations as we go along with cut sheets and tear sheets when we come down to the design plan. The request from the last meeting was a more detailed plan, so I put together to scale what the actual plan is and superimposed the apartment for above the garage and for the, which is right over here, and then the apartment, which is the one level over here, and the driveway coming in with all the measurements and the square footage. So the driveway is 12 feet wide. Alongside the firehouse would be all pervious soil, which would be 60 feet this way, and then 18 feet over here. There's 40 feet. There's plenty of turnaround beyond regulation size for the tandem two-car garage for cars to pull out and then pull out of the driveway, as well as this tandem garage being able to pull in and pull out, and 2 cars. So there's plenty of off-street parking, more so than what regulations require. We're not disrupting the footprint of the building. We're staying within the building itself. There's no public safety hazard or danger to human life. We're not promoting anything non-harmonious to the neighborhood. We are approaching this as a preservation, reuse approach. We're not promoting anything non-harmonious to the neighborhood, and we're not doing this, we're not claiming hardship. There's no additions, there's no protrusions on the exterior of the building, we're not near wetlands, there's no disturbance, we're not changing any of the elevation. Our plans are, again, preservation, reuse approach. Our plans provide more than enough parking for the tenants per regulations of 1.5 car per family. There's a 2-car tandem garage for the new renovation, and then there's the 2 cars on the side of the house, which is currently there now. Our plans do add pervious soil and address any watershed, and we want to add charm and appeal to the neighborhood. Do you have any questions?
There are several letters here. One's fairly extensive from the Guilford Historic Commission. I guess we'll read it into the record. So I'll grab this one. There's a couple of others from appear to be neighbors, so when I get winded, one of you grab those. This is to Aaron Manning, Zoning Enforcement Officer, and I would reiterate that the Historic Commission was consulted at our request. This is not actually in the Historic District, but abuts it. So while these recommendations are being made, the Historic District Commission is advisory and not mandatory. So with that said, dear Ms. Mannix, recently you informed the Historic District Commission that several neighbors had written a letter requesting that the applicant for the above-mentioned application, Michelle Ladano, meet with the Commission for suggestions on how to make the rear building improvements more harmonious with the historic character of the neighborhood. In response to this request, the Commission held a special meeting October 30th, 2019, and reviewed the plans as presented with Ms. Ladano. As noted, that although the property is not within the Historic District Commission, it does abut the district. The Commission's view was guided by the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation as directed by certified local government regulations. Particularly, the Commission applied Standard 1, which directs that every reasonable effort shall be made to provide a compatible use for a property which requires minimal alteration of the building structure, site, or its environment. 2 standards which state, quote, the distinguishing original qualities or character of a building or structure and its environment shall not be destroyed. 3 states all buildings, structures, and sites shall be recognized as products of their own time. Alterations that have no historical basis which seek to create an earlier appearance shall be discouraged. The context for this property is residential with small-scale neighborhood, owned and oriented industrial. This property, the town garage and small foundry, all located on or near Boston Post Road, are remaining evidence of the industrial mix that existed down that main road at the turn of the century. Within the site, the main structure is Sears and Roebuck Catalog House. They were widely constructed throughout the country in the early part of the 20th century. It represents both a new housing type, the modest bungalow style, and a shift in society from the beginning of a national media-driven economy. As such, both structures and their relationship to Guilford and the downtown are important for the record of our history over time, speaking to recovery after the Great War and the resilience of the community. The Commission supports the change of use request and in general terms suggests that the building be rehabilitated more in keeping with its industrial origins, allowing for an expanded residential use, with the Commission found compatible with Standard 1. There is strong evidence of the compatibility of reusing commercial and industrial buildings for residential use both nationally and in Guilford. In the Town Center Historic District, there are several rehabilitated carriage houses and 2 small foundry buildings, all now in residential use. The level of detail presented was not sufficient for a detailed review of the project, and the Commission would look forward to continuing input during design development. Choices of siding materials, windows, door styles, and details like lighting fixtures would be critical to the success of the project. As part of Guilford's certified local government program, the Commission is in a position to follow the progress of this project with technical advice and review. With reference to standards 2 and 3 above, the Commission had the following recommendations. The rehabilitation program for this building would be more industrial in character, and that it remain as complementary building to the main house, acknowledging the historical use and context of the building on the site. The access door at ground level on the facade should be centered between the garage doors. The color scheme should be more tone on tone in a darker over hue so that it relates better to the house in front. A mid-tone or darker color scheme would help the building recede from the street. This would both remain the historical relationship of the 2 buildings on the site and minimize the impact of the rear building directly to the street. The lower portion of the north could be resided with clapboard or shingle referencing to the main house. Once revealed, the access siding on the large section of the structure could be repaired or replaced. Dealing with oversized garage doors as part of a darker, more tone-on-tone color scheme will minimize the impact of the doors when viewed from the street, but still acknowledge their role in the history of the structure. The opening on the second floor should be treated as a loft-type element, utilizing existing board door, either hinged or siding over interior dark single-pane door with dark railing remaining in harmony with the industrial history of the structure. A more residential-style single door, as per code, is recommended for the addition to the north without glazing. A Dutch-style door would also be acceptable. The Commission did not feel that shutters would be appropriate in this type of building, and that windows and doors should be simple and unitarian in style. The Commission recommends a more detailed site plan to scale from what is initially presented. It is recommended that the current code be adhered to regarding the driveway width and turnaround radius. The Commission further recommends submission of scale, elevation plans, and material lists, cut sheets as far as doors, windows intended for this project. If you have any questions or require further information, please do not hesitate to call us. Randall W. McCarthy, Chairman. Did you get a copy of that?
I did.
Okay. There's also, who wants to grab the next letter?
Which one do you want to grab first?
Sure, you want to take the one from Ann Kaplan?
Alice Kaplan?
Alice, sure.
November 5th, 2019.
Okay. You want me to ask, was Alice
Sure.
here? Okay.
Keep going? Okay. To the Chairman of the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission, dear Mr. Johnson, I live next door to the brown craftsman-style bungalow and former air conditioning business at 18 Graves Avenue. Whatever happens to the house and to the barn behind it will have a big impact on me, whether it's dirt and noise during construction or altered views out my window and parking density after construction is finished. I am grateful to my neighbors on Graves for speaking out. Like them, I'm excited by the possibility of renovations to the AC factory barn. I'm also concerned because the plans we saw were vague. The renovation deserves care. Graves Avenue has set a very high bar for the quality of its houses and landscapes. Even the modest improvements that the renters next door have made to their porch and yard has made a big difference. I hope now that with guidance and oversight from you, the barn renovation can meet our overall level of excellence. I want to emphasize, too, that I do not think the PNZ should waive the owner's request for a full site plan. Yours sincerely, Alice Kaplan.
Someone like to grab the note from, is Suzanne Andres here? Would you like to read your own letter? You should come up, introduce yourself, name, and kind of going a little out of order on this, but let's.
My name is Suzanne Andres, and I live at 17 Graves Avenue. Dear Chairman, regarding the special permit application, Section 273-13C, from Michelle Lodano of 18 Graves Avenue, to change the property from non-conforming light industrial use in an R1 zone to another non-conforming use as a two-family residence for a total of 3 residential units on the property, I would like to support the application for rezoning, but raise my concerns regarding the request for additional density on the property. I am the owner of the property at 17 Graves Avenue, which is located directly across the street from number 18. My property includes a single-family home like many of the properties located along Graves Avenue, which is a quiet residential street located 1 block off of the historic Guilford Green. I purchased the property in 2010 because I was looking for a vintage home in a quiet residential neighborhood. Graves Avenue certainly fit the bill in all respects. Homeowners work to preserve the historic value of their homes and properties. A number of the houses contain 2 units in this cohesive community and lovely neighborhood. I certainly am in favor of the rezoning of the 18 Graves Avenue property to R1 residential zoning, removing the grandfathered non-conforming light industrial use at 18 Graves, so that the property reverts to a true residential site in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood. I remain concerned about the precedent that would be set by the requested change to replace this with a different non-conforming status, 3 residential units on the property, on a quiet residential street like Graves Avenue. While I understand that the applicant states there will be plenty of off-street parking and that there will be additional landscaping on the property and other efforts to make the appearance of the property more attractive, I remain concerned about the level of activity that will result from a more dense residential use on the property. It also is very difficult to determine what the end result will be without the benefit of a full site plan. I have a number of concerns about the proposed design, which is difficult to evaluate without the benefit of a site plan, elevations, and associated drawings. I am pleased that input was requested from the Historic District Commission, and I felt that the resulting input was valuable. I would like to request that the planning and design for the renovation of the property be supported by the preparation of a full site plan by a professional, as detailed in Section 273-97A of the Zoning Code, and would like to request that P&Z not waive that requirement in this instance. Thanks for your consideration. Suzanne Andres.
Thank you. There's a note from Craig and Margaret Walden. Are the Waldens here? No. Jason, you want to grab that one?
Sure. November 4, 2019, to Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission, Phil Johnson, Chair. Dear Mr. Johnson, we have been homeowners of 42 Graves Avenue for 30 years. Graves Avenue is a residential street in the Guilford Town Center with wonderfully restored and maintained historic properties. While we welcome the effort to revert 18 Graves Avenue to a conforming residential property, we feel the request to build 3 non-conforming residential units on the site requires due diligence by the Commission, requiring the proposal be resubmitted for full design review by the Design Review Board with input from Historic District Commission to ensure the neighborhood maintains its special character. Sincerely, Craig and Margaret Walden, 42 Graves Avenue.
Thank you. It's from John Stone. Scott, you want to grab that one? You want it? You got it.
There's an email on here that refers to the letter that I will read from John Stone. To whom it may concern, my name is John Stone, and I'm the tenant at 18 Graves Avenue, Guilford, Connecticut, along with my wife and our 2 sons. We've been residing at said location for almost a year and a half. When we moved back to Connecticut from Florida, Michelle Lodano, Paula Bowens, and Robin Bausu have been our landlords throughout this period. As many young professionals, I have had to move my family many times to pursue various career opportunities. As such, I have primarily rented houses with many different landlords and circumstances. I cannot begin to express my gratitude to Michelle, Paula, and Robin for how well they have taken care of us in their capacity as landlords. They have been exemplary landlords in every possible way and have gone above and beyond in maintaining and improving the property, including certain tasks that are likely our responsibility pursuant to the lease agreement. Guilford has become our permanent home due in part to how well Michelle, Paula, and Robin have treated us. Despite having opportunities to purchase a home, we decided to renew our lease this year because of how happy we are in this home. We intend to renew for another year thereafter. As you all likely know, Michelle, Paula, and Robin's family have a long and remarkable history with the subject property and the adjacent firehouse. They have taken incredible pride in the property and cared deeply about the integrity of the neighborhood. This is evidenced by how well they take care of it and in turn as us, her tenants. Additionally, Michelle, Paula, and Robin have expressed on numerous occasions their desire to develop the building in a manner that is consistent with the character of the neighborhood. I've literally seen Michelle in tears discussing her love of this neighborhood and the subject property. They have expressed to me that they desire to convert the building into 2 beautiful residential units because they believe it provides the best use and fit for the current neighborhood. I agree as well. Right now, the building stands essentially as a vacant, rundown warehouse and serves absolutely no purpose for anyone. If it were to be used to operate an industrial-style business, it would significantly diminish my family's quality of life, as well as the neighborhood as a whole. My wife and small kids would be greatly disturbed by the operation of heavy equipment noise, along with the coming and going of workers, who would likely not have the same meaningful relationship with the neighborhood as other residents would have. We would likely choose to move as a result. In contrast, residential units with conscientious tenants would build on the already existing community in this neighborhood. We would welcome the opportunity to meet and establish relationships with new neighbors in the community. I have absolutely no doubt that Michelle, Robin, and Paula will be as mindful in their approach to renovating the new building and maintaining it as they have been in taking care of the property we occupy and call home. On behalf of my family and me, I want to express my full-fledged support and belief in Michelle, Robin, and Paula's vision for the subject property for the aforementioned reasons. Please do not hesitate to contact me at the number or address provided below for any further questions. Sincerely, John Stone, Esquire.
Thank you. Alan, there's one from the Washington Engine Company. You want to grab that one?
To whom may concern, the Washington Engine Company, number 1, located at 10 Grace Avenue, has no objection to WGN01 LLC obtaining a change of use permit from the current zoning of light industrial into R1 in order to comply with the surrounding neighborhood. Yes, Glenn Haley.
Thank you. There's one here from Liz Miranker.
Dear Mr. Johnson, RE special permit application from Michelle Logano of 18 Graves Avenue. Regarding the special permit application above, presented to the P&Z Commission at its meeting last Wednesday, the 16th of October, and at which I read out the attached letter, which has already been read into the record last meeting. That's me, not this. 5 additional homeowners on the Graves Avenue had added their names in support of my letter, giving a total of 8 homeowners who endorsed the letter. Elizabeth and Andrew Maranker, 28 Graves Avenue, Sarah Nelson, 46 Graves Avenue, Margaret and Craig Walden, 42 Graves Avenue, Suzanne Andres, 17 Graves Avenue, Kathy Hebb and Ann McClure, 27 Graves Avenue, Deborah Spalding, 45 Graves Avenue, Alice Kaplan, 24 Graves Avenue, and Micheline Bresenhan, 2 Graves Avenue. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at the meeting. We were very pleased that the P&Z Commission advised the applicant to seek input from the Historic District Commission before the P&Z reaches a decision. With best wishes, Liz Maranker.
wrap up our letters on that?
There's one from, there's one from Aaron.
All right.
We don't need
Rock.
this.
Okay.
The memo from Dennis Johnson. Okay.
This is from the Town of Guilford Health Department to Planning and Zoning Commission from Dennis Johnson, Director of Health, dated October 16th, 2018. Probably a typo. Ladonna, subject Ladonna Michelle, 18 Graves Avenue, map 40, lot 18. Soil testing conducted on the applicant's lot revealed suitable conditions for installation of a separate septic system to serve the proposed two-family residence. The proposed two-family building will be permitted to have a total design capacity of 1 one-bedroom and 1 two-bedroom apartments. Based upon site plan review and soil tests, it is recommended that the applicant's proposed special permit be approved.
Thank you. The overwhelming concern that I'm hearing in many of these letters is the public seeking a professionally developed site plan. And I would love to support this project, but I really feel that it's a requirement within our zoning code. We do have the authority to waive it, but I'm sure it was put in there for a reason. And I have concerns about moving forward with a project of this significance without having a full knowledge of where we're going with it. Have you consulted or considered doing a professionally developed site plan? And I'd kind of like to throw that back to the commissioners too after we have your response.
Well, to what capacity are you looking for? So when I call an engineer, what am I actually asking for? There's many different aspects of what could be done. So if we are to go down this road, I need to know exactly what you're looking for. What is the bulleted list that you're looking for? Because again, we're not changing the elevation. We're not changing the exterior of the building. We're going with a preservation reuse approach, taking the asphalt shingles off of the building and hopefully exposing what this looks like. My original pictures had shutters and window boxes, and I thought that that would be conforming to the neighborhood, but it's not, and I'm okay with not having those. Color of the garage doors, I'm very good with all of that. There's more than enough space for turnaround as far as cars pulling in and pulling out. So I mean, I was told to put it to scale, so I put it to scale.
I think the bigger concern is probably the aesthetics of the building itself once it's redeveloped versus the lot and location.
But if we're talking about that, that's not a professional site plan, that's an elevation.
What exactly do the regulations say, George?
The regulations spell out in bullet points exactly what has to go into a site plan application.
I would mention that I think the point of what the elevations of the plan looks like is a different argument versus the site plan, professionally created site plan. The site plan is going to basically professionally do what she's done here. If we want to talk about the aesthetics, we want to talk about the elevation and whatnot, that's two separate issues.
Yeah, it's barely, elevation being the lot or elevation?
No, elevation is what the building will look like.
Elevation is what the sides of the buildings look like and the design of the building.
That's also a requirement of the site plan application that architectural plans be submitted. They don't have to be prepared by a licensed architect,
Right.
but that is a requirement of the site plan section of the zoning regulations.
So that is part of the site plan?
Yes, that's part of the requirement for.
It's that one of those bullet points that you were
Right.
just talking about. Okay. So then it's not separate.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Philip. I think it's something that is part of our regulations. It's something that other special permit applications would have to go through. think it's,
But it's already in existence. So I'm so sorry for my confusion. This is already in existence. It's already sited, it's already there. The asphalt shingles are covering clapboard siding, where we would like to pull it off and restore what it looks like underneath. I mean, we're not changing anything, we're not protruding anything. We assume that it looks like this, and if it doesn't, then we have to obviously repair, just like what the Historic Commission says. And we invite we're thrilled with their input and being able to bring the cut sheets and ask for their assistance throughout the project, as they stated in their letter. You know, as far as drawing the building as it stands right now, there's no changes to it. The windows are going to be there, the doors are going to be there, the slider, it's already there. We hope to restore the current doors there. We're truly not changing anything except putting new windows and doors.
Like you just said, the windows are staying, now you're just
Well,
you're putting new windows and doors.
Well, I have to replace the windows.
Right.
They're
At least two of the criteria for us granting a special permit include, under 27380 standards, A, location, type, character, size, use of any building, structure, and connection shall be in harmony and conformity to the appropriate and orderly development of the town and the neighborhood, and will not hinder or discourage appropriate development, use of adjacent lots, or impair the value of. And E, architectural design. It specifically goes to architectural design. The architectural design and style of all buildings and other structures shall be erected shall not be in conflict with the architectural design and style of adjacent properties. I appreciate all your efforts and think your heart is in the right place, but I really think that we need to have a sense from professionals as to what's going to be happening here. And I think we owe that to the neighbors that have expressed concern, and we owe that to the regulations themselves. I mean, I think it's a great effort to redevelop, and I would support it, but I really think that we need to have the backup to afford us granting a special permit.
Then again, I need to know bulleted point, because you said
Speak-
site
speak-
plan.
that's
and
fine.
That's what I did,
Town hall,
to scale. That's all that was said to me, was a site plan to scale, and this is what I brought forward.
none of us here know your profession. I mean, this is the part
It
that I...
says right there that it didn't have to be done by a professional. You said it doesn't have to be done by a professional.
Says the commission can waive the requirement. Right.
so
I think it's, Michelle's comment about having an engineer is probably correct. I don't think an engineer is really the type of professional that you need on this particular application. A design professional, architect, landscape architect, any of them could meet the literal requirement of the zoning code. I think, as Phil said, the issue that's most sensitive in the minds of the neighbors has to do with the architectural treatment of the building itself. There may be some other questions about the landscaping of the property, but I think the architectural elements are the most important. So in combination with the Historic District Commission, we could work with Michelle and come up with the bulleted list of items that she needs to address, should the commission choose not to waive that requirement.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's sufficient amount of information to me regarding architectural changes. I mean, it seems like you're going to preserve it, you know, and a lot of the exterior is going to remain the same, like, structure type of, like, as far as the overall dimensions. And, you know, I'm just wondering, like, what specific information would be, like, I guess, that's up to us to decide exactly what specific information we would need. Otherwise, we could
decide whether you have adequate design in the current application to make the finding that the chairman mentioned about the architectural approach or style or elements sufficient to grant the special permit. You have the right to waive that requirement if you feel like you have enough information. If you don't feel like you have enough information, or you're not confident that the plans have been drawn based on a professional's views and judgment and training, then you can deny the request for a waiver.
And if I could just, I mean, we are absolutely we're looking forward to working with the continuing input from the Historic Commission, just like they said before all of their bulleted points. You know, we don't know what kind of windows we're going to be able to put in, or you know, I'll have to get tear sheets and cut sheets and all of that stuff. I mean, we know that the windows need to be replaced, and if they will help us with that process, I have absolutely 100%. I was thrilled that they even offered to help us through this whole process. You know, we come to you with genuine care. You know, we could rent it out as an industrial building and leave it as is. We want to be a part of the neighborhood and bring families to the neighborhood. You know, we're not doing this out of hardship. We could leave it as is and not rent it out at all. You know, my sisters and I thought that this would add to the neighborhood and add to the center of town and promote a good environment. We don't want a business. We'd prefer not to have it, but if that's the direction that this is going to go in, we can do that too. You know, we're more than willing to absolutely conform with the neighborhood. We want to. This is absolutely what I see, the reuse of what's underneath there, and expose the beauty.
I don't think we mean to make it additionally difficult for you, but I understand what the chairman's saying too, is just having a concrete plans that you know that you can follow, that would work with the Historic District Commission and so forth. So, because right now we don't have an elevation, we don't have a landscape plan, and that is part of our regulation, the rule that we have something like that. So it's not to cause extra difficulty, I think, in you, but so that we have a good, concrete, clear idea of exactly what you would be doing, because it's going to.
I'd have to do something like that when it's already in existence. It's there. It's already there.
But we're converting the use, and you're seeking a special permit for that conversion. So that's why we're here. That's why we're having this discussion. It's not being done by right. You have to, meet certain criteria to have the special permit granted. So, I mean,
So you have to know what kind of siding is going to be on the building before I can
no.
get
So at this
a
point,
go-ahead?
at this point, you can say, I'm not going to do that, and we can evaluate the application based on that. You could say, I don't have that done right now. And request an extension and seek to have that done, and either have it done or not have it done, and we can address this at a later date. I'll kick it back to you. I sense resistance from many of the commissioners about moving forward without, professional help on the design. But that's, again, I'm putting it back to you. It's
Okay, again, if I have a bulleted point of
I would have you
what you are looking for.
sit down with the town planner and with Aaron Mannix, and they will clearly go through the regulations with you and say, this is what the Planning and Zoning Commission will be looking for.
Okay.
So with that said, would you like to proceed? Would you like to ask for an extension?
You don't need it. I think they're process-wise, let me just suggest a course. One, you vote on whether or not you want to waive the requirement for the professionally prepared plan. If you vote no, then the ball goes back to the applicant. We can continue the public hearing to the next meeting of the commission, which is the 20th of November. If the professionally prepared plan can be provided by then, you can review it then and close the public hearing and make a decision. If it takes longer than that, and the applicant is continuing to work on the professionally prepared plan, then she would presumably grant an extension in the amount of time that you have for a public hearing, which will run out on the 20th. So if we're still moving forward, making progress, and we need more time with the applicant's permission, you can continue the public hearing another 2 weeks to the first meeting in December. Hopefully, we'd have everything wrapped up by then. So that's the course of action. But it seems like, in all fairness to everybody, you should first make a decision on the request to waive the.
Physical size of this building is staying the same, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. The argument or talk on this so far is that the neighborhood feels that they don't like a particular color, they don't like a particular door, they don't like a particular window, all right? So I'm not for forcing you to go out and get an engineer, start spending your money on an engineer that you don't need to have, okay? What you need to do is sit down with George, sit down with the people that can help you look at it, and look at these papers, what they say, see if you come up with something that would be right, without spending a lot of money. I'm not here to spend your money. I'm here to help you. And so I say, sit down with the people that will help you, and see if you can do it without spending a lot of money, because this is your building. This is your money that's going into it. It's going into it as an improvement. The neighbors have a say because they got to look at it. But they don't have a right to demand you to change things that don't need to be changed just because they don't like the color. So by all means, I'm here for you, and I'm telling you, go to George and go to the people that help.
Question. If they're not changing the use of the building.
They are.
No, if they're not,
Okay.
hypothetically, they're going to replace the windows. That's a permit. That doesn't come before us. They're going to replace the doors. They're going to paint the building. We don't see any of that, right?
You're assuming they're not proposing to change the use.
No, exactly, right? You're just saying, you know
Right.
what, we're just going to,
Yeah.
we're going to remodel as is. It's going to be
That's correct.
industrial. So nobody has a say in what the windows look like. So if they wanted to put in the most country-looking pane windows, I don't know, they want to paint it yellow, there's nothing that can be done, even though that's not the case. And the only reason why it's here is because it is going to be a change of use, one non-conforming to another non-conforming. But at the end of the day, if it wasn't changed, she could do whatever she wants with the building. So that's where I'm struggling with saying, why are we going to keep spinning the wheels and keep delaying this process?
The whole point of going through this is we have one opportunity to make sure it's being done right. And by just saying, those are the criteria for granting a special permit. And the criteria also requires.
So we're going to be nitpicking about the windows if it's professionally done by an architect, a design
No,
planner?
I don't think we're going to be nitpicking about anything.
windows?
We just want to see something that's something more than, a home drawing. And I think the concerned neighbors deserve that as well. I mean, they all have investments in the neighborhood. And not that I don't think you're going to try and do it right. It's just, again, we have one opportunity. Once we say yes, it's yes forever. It's not yes for the next 30 days.
I think
But
that,
correct me if I'm wrong, I'm also not regulated by the historic district.
That's correct.
So
That's the first thing I
I could put
said.
these tear sheets in front of them and you, and this is great, and then find something that's either more appealing to me or less expensive to someone else, right? I mean,
Right, we still
I'm
have,
also.
we still have to live within the criteria for
Oh,
granting a special
absolutely.
permit.
There's-
So, I mean,
Well, yeah,
obviously,
there'll-
it's,
There'll be new windows.
Well, let me just clarify. Because of the special permit, the plan that's approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, including the design that's approved, would be binding on you. So if the plan specifies that the building, have a certain type of window, certain type of doors, located in a certain way, based on the drawings that you submit, then you have to implement it, you have to build it that way. You can't decide later that you want to change the windows and put two windows where there was one, or put a bigger window instead of a littler one, or change any of the architectural elements. Those would all be approved as part of the special permit application. So that's part of the reason why the regulations require that be documented, what those changes are, what that design is, that be documented as part of the plan approval. Rather, now the commission could not approve any specific plan. They could leave it vague in terms of the elevation treatment, for example, in which case then you could be free to do whatever you want, and you wouldn't have to go to historic district or anybody else. But whatever plan is approved by the commission, because it's a special permit, would be binding on you. If you found during the development process that you wanted to change the windows from what was approved to something else, you could come back to the commission and say, look, we find that these windows are really awful, they don't look right, will you approve the change? And the commission would say, yes, we'll approve the change, and then you could go do that. But whatever plan's approved by the commission, that's what you have to implement.
To say that, I think that the change in use from the light industrial to a residential use would be more appropriate for the neighborhood overall, and that I think that we have the ability to put conditions on the special permit application tonight if we need to. I don't think, going off of Frank's point, we don't need to spin the wheels on the details. If there's any major concern that we have for the special permit, we could make that part of the condition of approval tonight. We don't need it. I think that the information we have, is sufficient to go forward with the change in use.
Well, why don't we do this? Would you like to make a motion to waive the requirement?
Can I have a suggestion?
Okay.
We have folks in the public audience that probably want to weigh in.
Are we at the?
You're at a public hearing, yes. You are at a public hearing.
Thanks.
You can, it would be, I think it would be desirable that as part of the public hearing, you make that decision on the waiver, however.
Right, before we take public comment?
Before you close the public
Okay,
hearing.
before we close the public
Yeah,
comment.
otherwise, because,
Okay, well, let's.
but you could still entertain, as Scott said, comments from the audience on any aspect of the discussion, including whether or not they think you should waive the requirement for the professionally prepared plan.
With that said, is it okay we see comments from the public? Are you done with your presentation?
Can I reiterate after the comment?
Sure, absolutely. This is a public
Okay.
dialogue.
Okay.
Um,
No, yeah.
Are there any first we'll start with clarifying questions, and then we'll go to comments in support, and then we'll go to concerns or comments against. So does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Would anyone like to speak in favor of the application? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Sarah Nelson, I'm a property owner of 46 Grace Avenue, and I'm actually a licensed architect with 30 years' experience doing adaptive reuse of historic buildings. In general, I very much support Ms. Landino's efforts to change one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use. And I had a letter, which I'm not going to read into the record because it reiterates so many of the points that were made this evening. But what I did want to talk about is why it is important to actually have professionally prepared plans and elevations as well as site plan, and it relates to the change of use under the building code. So when you're changing to a residential use, you're going to be encountering issues that have to do with second means of egress out of bedrooms. They're going to regulate the size of the windows. They're going to regulate, as Ms. Landino knows, the size of the doors. And so the reason for having a professionally prepared plan with the change of use in mind, and that's the really important thing here, is that Ms. Landino is actually going to be forced to change some things. And what the plan does, it allows a pre-identification of what those issues are, and then it allows her, any property owner, to actually synthesize all of the requirements together at one time. It actually is cost-saving for the owner to be able to plan for a project knowing full well what's going to be required. So my strong recommendation to the Commission is that you continue to work with Ms. Landino, that she continues to work with the Historic District Commission, but that you don't waive the right, because there are things that are coming out of the building code and the fire code that are important to be considered. Thank you.
That's actually a good point. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of the application?
One point on the procedure, However, this application, before she would start construction, she would need to go through the building department and get a building permit, correct? Which would potentially cover a lot of the issues that were just raised. In theory, that's the point of getting a building permit, correct? Is there a requirement to have professionally prepared architectural drawings for a building permit?
building permit can do anything until after the fact.
No, but I'm asking, is there a requirement to have professionally architectural plans done for a building permit?
For this particular project, I'm not sure if that would be the case.
Well,
Again, with the process with the building permit, you go down, you take it out, you do whatever you're proposing to do, and then it gets inspected after the fact. If
And
it-
it has to all meet the code.
Before they issue the permit, they're gonna look and make sure that
Correct.
what is actually happening. They won't issue a permit to start until they've reviewed the plans, I would assume, pretty thorough.
Correct. With a building permit, you can't start construction until the permit is satisfied. And then you can start construction.
And then you can't
the
get the
whole
CO
point-
till all the inspections are done technically, right?
And the reason is because if this wasn't a special permit and they wanted to update this building, they would have to get a building permit. So the building permit happens regardless of whether it's a special permit or not, and it's, again, to make sure that our egress is met, it's to make sure that all of these, health and safety issues are satisfied and so on and so forth. My main question was just in terms of what, in this case, what would be the requirements in terms of a professional or non-professional architectural?
Your testimony, I can't corroborate it, but that to renovate, to create a two-family dwelling,
This is
to get a
considered
building
as a
per-
multifamily dwelling.
well, I don't know whether the building code does call out that this is multifamily and therefore requires an architect to get a building permit.
Right.
I don't, that's what you're testifying that is the case. I don't know what, I can't confirm that, but
Well, I
this
can
jo-
assure you it'll be to code, it'll have fire exits, I'm not
But
gonna
I
build
think,
a fire
I think
trap there.
what your neighbor is saying is that she's a registered architect. In her opinion, you will be required to have an architect before you can get a building permit.
And that's what I was trying to get at.
And
is
whether,
that-
if that is in fact the case, the issue for the commission is that by that point, they will have already approved this application based on whatever plan is before us, at this point, not a plan prepared by an architect, and that therefore the horse will be out of the barn in terms of the commission's decision-making. The only criteria that the architect for your project have to meet would be the building code requirements, not necessarily the preservation or planning and zoning criteria that the commission has to consider. So they may approve something that you've drawn and make a finding that that's compatible, but with the criteria that they have, but then find out that you in fact can't build that because it doesn't conform to the building code, which your architect would tell you when you hire an architect, which evidently you have to hire eventually anyway. So there seems to be some logic to the notion that why not hire the architect now?
No, I wasn't under the impression that I had to hire an architect.
I was not
to-
aware of that either, but that's,
Because
Well,
like.
Well, because they're gonna
like
look at
this-
the plans, the
case.
building department, they're gonna need health to sign off on it, they're gonna need fire to sign off on it. And that's where the fire department said, well, we can't sign off on it because there's not two means of egress, let's say. So now the building department's gonna come back to her and say, you don't have two means of egress, let's say, because it's a residential unit. That's how that whole process works.
And windows upstairs on the second floor have to be large enough for
Um,
egress also.
It was an example.
In order to get a building permit, it has to go through all the departments first.
Would that not go through the engineering because of that industrial park, George?
all the departments have to review the
So
building
it's-
permit application.
We give them an okay, doesn't mean they're going to just fly through with a permit. It's got to go through the engineer.
Yeah,
It's
it's
got
also
to go
satisfy
through
all the various codes.
everybody, right up to the health department, making sure the septic systems are going to be right. There's there's five different departments it's got to go through in order to get down there and get the permit. You don't just walk in and get a permit, you walk out and start building. If you do, you get in trouble because the building inspector will shut you right down. I know that for a fact.
But that's where design can change, because when I did a house, the window upstairs on the second floor had to become physically larger to fit the square footage for egress for fire and access for fire department to a second floor.
That's why the building department will see that, and they will say, I'm not going to give you the permit. That's why you have to have everything done before you start building, which a lot of times is not done, and a lot of people get in trouble with that.
But that could drastically change the design of the building, which is
So
concerning
us
some of the people.
giving her the permit, I mean, giving her the okay does not mean it's just gonna fly right through and she's gonna put a square window in a round hole.
Well, and I can assure you, if the window is this big and it needs to be this big, but it'll still be right where that window is. We're not gonna put a window over there when there's not a window over there already. So wherever the existing windows are, will be a window. If it needs to be brought up to code, of course it'll be brought up to code, whether it's raise it or lower it, it will be in the same spot. The door is gonna be in the same spot. There's a double window right now in that one floor that we were gonna make into an oversized door, but they didn't, Historic said no to the double door, so that will become one door. But it's an opening right now, so it'll be one instead of two. So, I mean, everything will be brought up to code, and again, staying with the existing, what we have. We're not gonna cut a hole in the side of the building if the hole is not already there. If the hole is already there, and it needs to be made smaller or larger to accommodate a window to code or a door to code, then we will do that.
Sure. To reiterate George's point, though, however, we're judging more based on fitting with character, with all the requirements that are based on special permit, which don't necessarily get into the weeds of door sizes, window sizes, and that sort of thing. However, if we, as George mentioned, if we approve something with a certain window size and then it changes, as dumb as that sounds, that could technically change the character of the building. It could change these overarching ideas that we have to make a determination on, technically. Is that the point that you were trying to make, George?
And overall is that I think that residential use is more appropriate for the neighborhood than an industrial use. So,
And I don't think anyone's
so all
arguing
this-
against that, we just want it done the right way.
But all of this, if we don't know for sure whether she's going to need an architect or not, and so all of this is going to happen after the fact of tonight anyway.
Or not. I mean, right.
If we waive it, I'm saying all
Right.
of this is going to be after.
So let's continue with our comments. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of the application? Would anyone like to speak against the application? Please step forward, state your name and address. Thank you.
Doug McGee of 6 Horseshoe Road, Guilford. I'm also an officer member of Washington Engine Company of 10 Grays Avenue, and we support the concept and ideas that our neighbor has for the property. So,
Would anyone like to speak against the application? Okay. Would someone like to propose a motion to waive the professionally developed plan?
I'll make that motion.
Would you like to second that motion, Alan?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, let's have some discussion. I mean, I just think it's important for safety reasons, potentially legal reasons, for protection for both potentially the applicant as well as the abutting neighbors and concerned neighbors, that we don't just green light without having a pretty firm idea about what we're doing. But I will respectfully receive comments from everyone.
I think that the building code will sufficiently take care of any safety concerns, and I don't think we need to really, I mean, I'm all for making the process, I don't like any undue delay, I think that we're voting on a change of use ultimately, and I think everyone's in agreement that that change of use is appropriate. And as far as getting, a specialized professional site plan application is a little
Much.
Yeah.
Well, in relation to what the cost of this entire project is going to be, it's
And there's-
projected at least. It's a,
There's your architect, and then there's a professional home designer. The cost, or they swing both ways. I'm sure she could find a professional home designer, which is licensed, which will come in a quarter of the cost of what you're going to pay an architect. And it's going to be just as, they're going to know the code, they're going to provide a set of detailed plans
Well,
of,
it just depends on what's required by the building
code.
department for this type of use.
And in theory, we could deny, if we, the professionally waived site plan, if we feel that, but we could still approve the special permit.
no, I don't think so.
No, you have to waive the professionally prepared site plan.
Because it's,
Before you can-
well, it's a requirement of,
If you don't, then you have to deny the application, because that's a requirement of the zoning code.
has there been precedent where we've done something similar like this, where it's an existing structure and it's being, whether it be, and somebody's
Oh, yeah.
coming in
It's
and
not
gutting
uncommon.
it basically and
It's
keeping
not at
these-
all uncommon to waive that, for the commission to waive that requirement.
When you're going from a non-conforming use to another non-conforming use?
I'm not sure if I could say that, but
Yeah.
there are certainly many examples, accessory apartment applications, which are pretty innocuous, really, in terms of their design requirement, where you've waived that.
So I'm just thinking, like, if we don't waive the requirement, it basically means that we're concerned that the building code and the historic plans aren't going to be sufficient to change the use to a residential property.
I don't agree with that. I don't see it that way at all. I see it as a matter of process. It's a requirement. I think we would be setting a negative precedent to not have that requirement met, to waive that requirement.
so, back to our process, we have a motion second. If we waive the requirement, then we can proceed ahead with this. If we don't waive the requirement, we could again come back to you and say, how would you like to proceed? And that could be, go ahead and vote as you will, or you'd like to table it or withdraw it, or ask for an extension.
You don't need the extension until the 20th of November. You can continue the public hearing until the 20th, consider whatever application materials available then. If you have everything you need, you can close the hearing then and make a decision. And you don't actually even have to make a decision then. You still have 65 days after the conclusion of the public hearing to make a decision. But you need to conclude the public hearing by the 20th, and you do have a meeting on the 20th, unless the applicant gives you 35 more days to continue the public hearing again.
For sure, I would like clarification on the legal requirements for a two-family to be professionally designed. I mean,
In terms
right
of the
right now, we
building
have the statements from one of the
Yes.
neighbors,
Right.
which I believe to be correct, but I'm not an attorney, and
Is this time sensitive? Do you need to break ground? You need to-
Well, I was hoping to break ground for the septic before winter hit. The septic is all ready to go. I've got the quote. I'm ready to break ground for septic.
well,
And, I mean, as far as architect and code and everything else for the building, I mean,
If you don't,
we presumed that once we got underway, then I didn't want to hire an architect. I didn't want to dump any money into anything, because if you all voted it down, then I just threw thousands of dollars out the window. So here I stand with this drawing because I didn't know where this was going to go. And, do we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring this building and unify into the neighborhood, or do we leave it as is? And like you said, change the windows and the doors without asking anybody and leaving shingles on it and renting it out as industrial. That's not the route that we want to do, so here we are. But we didn't want to put any money out because we didn't know where this was going to go. So hence, we did not hire an architect. We have a boundary survey done.
I'm sorry. It does sound like it's an important, if you think it's if your decision on whether to waive the requirement hangs on whether or not that applicant would be required to hire an architect in any case, to renovate this building into a two-family dwelling, that could be an important consideration. And we have testimony from Sarah Nelson that she thinks it does require that, but our own building official could weigh in on that question. Unfortunately, she can't do that right now, so you'd have to table that decision until the next meeting of the commission.
Can I ask a question though? When I submitted this application, wouldn't that have come up when my application went to all the department heads? Wouldn't that have come into question that you need an architectural drawing before we can put this into a meeting?
The special permit requires preliminary I just looked it up while we were talking. Preliminary architectural drawings, which does not require them to be professional necessarily. So that's why that wouldn't have come up. But the question is if professional drawings are going to be required for your building permit, then if you're going to have to do it anyway, then it's my feeling that I would like to have them for the special permit deliberation.
Right. To answer Michelle's question, the building official doesn't normally participate in our staff review of planning and zoning applications. It's actually a point of discussion within our department as to whether she should or shouldn't. But so therefore, she typically doesn't weigh in on these questions, and it didn't occur to anybody, it didn't occur to me until tonight, until Sarah mentioned it, that, well, maybe an architect's required in any case for you to get a building permit to create that two-family unit. And if that is the requirement, then you're going to have to hire the architect one way or the other, assuming the application's approved. You probably have a pretty good feeling right now, let me speak a little bit out of school, if this application is highly favorable. There's no guarantee that it will be approved, but it seems like everybody approves the concept of it. The issue really is this architectural question. If you have to hire an architect anyway, as Scott just said, why not do it now? But we don't know for sure that our building official actually would require an architect before you get a building permit to do that project.
the engineer for that?
No, we talked to the building official. That would be, the building official enforces the Connecticut Building Code, which is the governing law that determines whether a licensed architect, I think Sarah Nelson's saying not a designer, but in fact a licensed architect is required to prepare the drawings or the plans for the creation of a two-family dwelling, if that in fact is the view of our own building official.
A single-family dwelling and a multi-family dwelling.
Pardon me?
I mean, I'm saying, I personally built a house in Guilford, and I hired a home designer.
You definitely do not have to have an architect to build a single-family dwelling.
Okay.
For a two-family,
The question
there's
is whether or
lots of
not,
other regulations.
Yeah.
So I had to have tempered glass on the second floor in case somebody fell through the windows, all the whole
Again,
thing.
though, it's a pre-existing structure. So, I mean, we're not constructing any walls, any exterior, we're not doing anything exterior, it's all interior.
the only question is, the question really is, does our building official feel that the law requires that you have an architect? If she thinks that it does, then that's important information to the commission. You could argue it with her. You could, I'm sure there's an appeal process to argue that somewhere else, a higher authority regarding the building code requirements, but we don't know the answer to any of those questions.
You need a motion to withdraw
Right now, you have just from Robert's rules, you have a motion and seconded, so either that motion needs to be withdrawn by both the mover and the seconder, or you have to vote on it.
I'll make a motion to withdraw.
Were you the
No,
seconder?
you were the seconder.
I would make a motion that we withdraw that first motion.
Actually, it has to be by now, doesn't it?
Oh,
Yeah.
Who made the motion?
Matt,
Okay.
Okay.
would you make a motion to withdraw so we can get some clarification on the architectural requirements for a two-family structure?
Are we going to need those architectural requirements when we review the site plan, the special permit application, I mean? We're going to have to, in order to approve the special permit
There are
application.
two issues before you. One is a factual question. Does the building code, in the opinion of the Guilford building official, require an architect before you can get a building permit for this project? And then two, regardless of whether that's answered one way or the other, do you want to waive the requirement for a professionally prepared plan? That's a separate question, but it sounds like you want the answer to the first the factual question first before you make that second decision. If you want to make a decision on the motion that you made, without that information, obviously you can.
I mean, I made a motion, and,
He's withdrawn his second.
okay.
So is anyone?
Can't withdraw your second until if he doesn't withdraw, there's nothing he can withdraw.
Oh, he was after him.
Well, then I'll re-second it then. If he
Okay.
wants to keep it, then I'm not, then it's gonna come to a vote then. If he wants to keep it
I'm
as
willing to
a,
keep the motion on the table.
then I'll re-second it if Alan withdrew.
All right. Well, I think we've had quite a bit of discussion on this. I will call the vote. As I said, Jamie is an alternate, so she won't vote. All those, sorry?
Who's voting on this?
Everyone but Jamie.
Oh, except Jamie, okay.
Okay? All those in favor of waiving the professionally developed site plans, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
1, 2. All against? 1, 2, 3. The motion does not
I'm
carry.
abstaining.
Frank abstains.
Did Michael vote?
I would like to see the plans.
Okay.
Well, you have to vote
So
on
we
the
have to
motion.
vote.
Well,
You don't have to vote on the motion, you can abstain.
so the motion does not pass, so what I would propose is we continue the public hearing to November 20th and get clarification with respect to the professional requirements with respect to the application. Someone like to second that? Sorry. Discussion? I think we had too many questions on the table. Okay, no
Wait,
discussion?
what's the motion right now?
To continue the public hearing to November 20th at our next meeting, so we can get clarification from town staff.
Public hearing on the waiver requirement?
No, that's already gone down.
The whole application.
Okay, on the whole application,
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
Everything's dead right now.
Well, everything's being continued to the next meeting, if we pass the motion to continue.
So at the next meeting, they're expected to have the professional?
No, I think at the next meeting, we'll be again facing this, either the question, do you have any interest in developing a professional site plan? Or do you want us to vote on it without one? Or do you want to continue this to a later date, which gives you the opportunity to develop one?
I think that my sense is that you will air the question again, whether to waive the professionally prepared site plan, when you get the information from the building official as to whether or not architect is required. My sense is that your vote on not waiving it right now may or may not be the final word on that subject,
Right.
correct? Okay.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So we have a motion to continue, we have a second from whom? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any against? Any abstain? Motion carries. We'll continue your application at our next meeting on November 20th.
Okay, and what is required of me?
Nothing yet.
Should meet with, I would suggest.
Well,
meeting with George.
let's put it this way. Let's say we find out tomorrow from the building official that an architect is required for you to get a building permit for a two-family dwelling to convert for this project. Then the ball's in your court as to whether or not you want to hire that architect right now, develop the plans, maybe for the 20th. If they can't be done by the 20th, for the next meeting of the commission. So the ball will be in your court once you get that information. If the building official says, no, an architect isn't required, then you come back here with, you can still hire an architect if you want to, or you come back here and we're back exactly the same place on the 20th as we are now, except that we know that the building code does not require that you have an architect. Follow me? Sort of.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is Daniel Earl, 18 Edwin Court, map 93 lot.
Can I ask you just poor woman, she needs some clarity here.
Thank you.
So I think, I can't say it any simpler. We're gonna find out if you need a professional plan to convert your non-conforming industrial use, light industrial, to a two-bedroom residential unit, two-family unit. If the building official says you need a professional architect to design this, to get your permits and to come to us, then you could do that. If he says, no, it doesn't require it, you will come on the 20th, just like you are now, and say, listen, I don't want to spend anything, You guys make the decision.
Can you read, did somebody record the words for this waiver? I didn't hear any of that in the vote. I heard, are we granting a waiver?
Right, so we
Let's
have,
continue.
we have the right to waive the requirement of the professionally developed plan.
We didn't do
So
that.
you voted to not.
We,
You are not voting. You have voted to not, sorry.
to not
It
waive.
is, your due diligence in code is to have a professional plan done. You made a motion.
Well, we actually, what we did is, we voted to not waive it. So we haven't.
To not waive that.
Correct.
So is that not the information that has to, is that not the information to be acted upon?
It is, but the important, I think, the commission, my statement toward the end there was, the commission made that they voted to deny the request pending further clarification of whether an architect is required in any case. If an architect is required by the building code to build a two-family dwelling, then the commission may reconsider that request to waive. They may not.
But my understanding of Robert's rules is that needed to have been part of the motion, right?
Well, that may or may not, it wasn't part of the motion, but it was a clarification of the motion afterwards. I think it's, if you follow me.
So she has to
She has to do what again? It's in her,
go through this again.
As I said, we kind of have one opportunity to do, our charge to protect what's in the building code. So, and trust me, I've sat here long enough, I know we don't make everybody happy. So, I apologize. Our next item is Daniel Earl, 18 Edwin Court, map 93, lot 46, zone R8, special permit per section 273-36A to construct a detached unheated garage with attic storage. Do we want to, hey, George, do we want to do them both at once?
yeah.
I
I mean, you should probably vote twice because it's two different applications.
we have two different
But they
applications.
should present it all
Mark,
together.
we have two different applications, but we're going to combine them if that's all right. You guys good with that? Okay. Daniel Earl, the second one is also for Daniel Earl, 18 Edwin Court, map 93, lot 46, zone R8, special permit per section 273-19 to construct a detached accessory apartment to be used as a pool house with exterior covered terrace. Good evening.
Jeffrey Beatty, 705 Boston Post Road. Just so the commission's aware, we obtained 2 variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals last month with regard to the variances for the heights of the 2 proposed structures, because given the topography of the site and the location that we've proposed, they needed variances to comply with the regulations of the R3 zone. We've received those variances, and after receiving those variances, we believe the proposed structures comply in all other areas with regard to the requirements of the R3 zone. And I'll have Mr. Young describe the project in greater detail.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm Mark Young, Lance Road of Waldman Associates, representing the Earls on this project. On this site plan, which is drawn at 1 inch equals 40 feet, the lot is on the corner of Leatherman Road and Edward Court. This is actually 2 lots that have been combined. The house was built 10, 15 years ago, shown right here. At that time, the septic system, which I show in yellow here, was constructed, of course, completely in accordance with the health code. The proposal is to build a 3-car garage here, a pool, patio, and pool house in this area. The pool house will have living quarters, so we've provided a septic system in this area. The soil tests, there were numerous soil tests in here from the original, before the construction, indicated suitable soils. We've provided stormwater treatment for the new structures. The garage, we have a infiltration, underground infiltration chamber here. For the pool house and patio, We have infiltration chambers here. Again, the previous soil test indicated suitable soil. The separating distances are in accordance with the health code, so with the up-to-date septic, stormwater treatment, we'll have no adverse environmental impacts on the site. Our architect, Elise Herring, can explain the buildings a little bit.
Hi, I'm Elise Hergen, 40-foot Bridge Road in Guilford. Just to identify, some of this is in your packet of what we're doing. This is the existing residence. And as Mark said, it's on 2 lots, so you can see this on the aerial view of the property. So this is a model showing, looking at the rear of the house, showing the pool house and then the garage. The Earls hired a landscape architect to do a plan, so you can see the existing house here. The proposed garage is basically mirroring what the aesthetic is of their existing garage across the way, so we kind of create this drive court in between. And then in the back, so we're seeking the special permit because of the size of the accessory structure of the garage and because of the use of this considered an accessory apartment for the pool house. To give you a sense on the garage, architecturally, we're in keeping with the character of the house itself and the character of the neighborhood. It's meant to complement the existing house. And I know you have all these elevations, but you can see that in model form. On this photograph of the existing house, the garage is sitting over here. And then for the pool house, this is the elevation. The shadowed out is obviously the existing house. You're seeing the garage beyond, and this is the face of the pool house and the pool. This is looking at the rear of the property. And then again, the site plan here. So in terms of on the zoning chart, you can see we're well under lot coverage requirements, well under floor area ratio requirements. So we're not even coming remotely close to any of the allowable calculations.
The only thing that I would add, in connection with the variance applications, we had to notify the adjacent neighbors by certified mail as to what the project was. There were no objections to the size, scope, location, or design of the proposed structures. And in fact, we received 2 letters from neighbors of nearby properties, one at 18 Edwin Court. I'll send these copies for the record. Here's copies. Basically, the neighbors have said that, or the 2 neighbors who responded said that they had no objection and support the proposed structures, and that those are the written responses, and Mr. Earl went and spoke with the other neighbors, and they had no objection as well. So the neighbors are aware of what's being proposed and have no objections. We believe the design is in compliance with the characteristics of the neighborhood, won't have a negative impact on property values, satisfies the requirements of the zoning regulations, particularly now, or especially since we've received the variances with regard to the height of the structures. There's adequate access. There's an existing house. It's on one lot that was the result of merging 2 lots in this neighborhood, and so the lots of sufficient size. And the style, as I said, won't conflict with the architectural design or integrity of the neighborhood. And we satisfy all the setback and other lot area and lot size requirements. So we'd ask that you approve the 2 special permit applications.
Do you want me to read the quick letters into the record quickly?
If you'd like to, sure.
Yeah,
They're both quick. I reside at 48 Edwin Court in Guilford. I have reviewed both the proposed plans for the pool house and 3-car garage, and 100% support these applications. I can be reached at 203-623-1916 if you have any questions. This is Best Rich Zakowski, and this letter is in reference to my neighbor Dan and Cheryl Earl at 18 Edwin Court and their proposed property improvements referenced above. We as next door neighbors have reviewed their projected plans and 100% support the project. Feel free to contact me at 203-520-7899 if you wish. Linda Toscano.
Terry, we also got a letter from
Johnson today. I don't know if you got a chance to see that one. So it just says dated today from Dennis Johnson to the Planning and Zoning. The applicant's proposed accessory apartment will require construction of a new dedicated septic system to accommodate the additional wastewater discharge. Soil tests previously conducted on site indicate the presence of suitable soils for installation of a new septic system. Based upon the soil test results of site plan review, it's recommended that the applicant's special permit application for a new garage and apartment pool house be approved with the following conditions: that 1, the septic system design for the detached accessory apartment shall be prepared by a professional engineer. Copy? You want it?
Yeah, that's great, thanks.
Sorry, I ripped it.
No problem.
Any clarifying questions from the commission?
What was the change in height? You said there was a height variance that was granted?
Well, if you see the slope of the property and where we were locating it, if you measure from the mean of the ground level, it would be above the height restrictions for an accessory structure for both of the structures. And we could...
So we're not talking over 10 feet? You're just...
In terms of the variance?
Mm-hmm.
No, the variances are under 10 feet. But if we could locate the structures on the house, on the lot without requiring variances, but for the pool, it would be closer to the street, and we wanted to keep it in a location that was more private and less out front, so to speak, because you'll note it's on Edwin Court and Leatherman Road, so there are really 2 front yards for this parcel. And so we needed the height variance for the pool house to keep it here, and we needed it for the garage to keep it kind of parallel or, a mirror image of the existing garage. So that's what we needed the variance.
What's the distance noted there from the corner of the garage to Edwin Court?
41 feet to the street.
Are there any clarifying questions from the audience? Would anybody like to speak in favor of the application? Would anyone like to speak against the application? I'm pretty comfortable with this application. Would someone like to make a motion to waive the second public hearing for the special permit?
I'll make a motion.
Second. Discussion? I mean, it's easy when things are professionally prepared and all that. I mean, not to refer, I just had to go down that road. I know. Sorry about that. So we have a motion, a second. All in favor of waiving the second public hearing?
Aye.
Thank you. So no second public hearing. Sorry, Jeff. No more billable hours for you, but. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Great.
Voted that the Guilford plan.
Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Do you have another motion by any chance?
What?
Do you have another motion?
Are we done with public meeting now?
Yes.
I'll make a motion. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit application for Daniel Earl for an accessory apartment at 18 Edwin Court, map 93, lot 46, as shown on application dated 9/17/2019, and zoning location and topographic survey, property of Daniel E. Earl, dated June 6, 2019, revised to September 17, 2019, prepared by Waldo and Associates, and proposed pool house plan dated 9/17/19 by EAH Architect.
11/6/8 for the Waldo plan, revised too.
So revised. This application is approved based on the following conditions, namely the condition presented by Dennis Johnson. This application is...
Kevin asked that we also include the standard condition about erosion controls. He didn't get a chance to write that up, but I think you know what it is basically.
Erosion controls generally involve either silt fencing or hay bales to restrict the movement of sediment and soils.
Other one. Can we just...
You all right with that? Good, thank you.
It's probably on the professional plan.
It probably is.
Stockpiles...
So let's deal with the apartment first, and then we will go to the garage. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Got half of it. Jason, you want to take the second one?
Proposed motion, Earl Garage, voted that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit for a garage for Daniel Earl, 18 Edwin Court, map 93, lot 46, as shown on the application dated 9/17/2019, and, quote, zoning location and topographic survey property of Daniel E. Earl, end quote, dated June 6, 2019, revised to September 17, 2019 by Waldo and Associates, and, quote, proposed garage plan, end quote, dated 9/17/19 by EAH Architect. This application is approved with the following conditions, so that would be the Dennis Johnson, and we should have the...
Johnson condition doesn't apply to this one.
It doesn't, okay.
But the erosion
control would go to that one.
And that should also indicate the 11/6 revised date for the Waldo plan.
Okay, yeah, both of those, and then this application is approved based upon the finding that with the variance granted, it conforms to the zoning code. The special permit is effective on November 15, 2019, and upon filing with the town clerk.
Second? Second.
Discussion? Again, looks like a good project. No objection from neighbors. They got the variance already. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pending, we don't have to act on these pending items, just, correct?
The 258, 260 River Street applicant is here.
Okay. So, under regular meeting, pending applications, 258, 260 River Street LLC, 258 River Street, map 46, lot 48, zone PV and R3, site plan revision for entry addition and site modification for change of use from paint store to spa.
Good evening. Todd Anderson from Anderson Associates, 1054 Boston Post Road here in Guilford. I'm here representing my client who is looking to change from a paint store to a spa. His wife is planning on opening up the spa. Okay. They plan on doing a minor revision to the entry. Right now, there's a side door. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with this site. Pretty ugly building. They're planning on doing some modifications to the building, chopping off the corner of the building and putting in a roofed entryway. I believe it's a double door going in. I was hoping the architect was going to be here tonight, but apparently the client said you weren't required to be here, so I'm here alone. Right now, it is a gravel parking lot, gravel driveway going around the building. There's a gravel driveway coming up to a rear entry in this area here. The whole front of the building has a gravel driveway, which we propose to remove. It will be loomed and seeded. There's a natural detention basin up in front here. We plan on keeping a small stone walkway between the front door of the house part of the building and the new entry here. So we are reducing the impervious coverage by taking out this stone driveway in the front and this stone driveway in the back. The septic system, we had it inspected, and the septic for the paint store is about 95% failed. So we propose to put in a new septic system in this area and here, code compliant. We plan on capturing part of the roof drainage. Right now, all of the roof drainage comes out liters, goes out on the ground into the parking area. So the part of the roof that comes out into the parking area, we plan to capture, put into a detention system under their existing driveway. To be ADA compliant, we propose a handicap parking space on this side of the parking lot with an ADA compliant access way across the driveway up into the entry here. We can't put the ADA space right up against the building because we can't reach the percent grade for an access way for an ADA space. So ADA regulations say as close as feasibly possible, which is on the opposite side of the entry. So it is ADA compliant. We propose to pave, the entryway will be a paver walk. We propose to pave the ADA spot and the hatching only up to this area in here. I know it was recommended by town staff to pave this portion of the parking lot in here. My client does not want to do that. He's not required to do that, so we are required to pave the ADA access, which is what our proposal is. We have soil and erosion controls coming around to protect the tidal wetlands, which is adjacent to this site, from any possible erosions. I think you have been given the architectural plans. I don't have any copies of those. I hope you have those, which would show the elevations of what is proposed. The site lighting, right now there is a single spotlight on the corner of the building that flows out into the parking lot. They are proposing to eliminate that. There will be some uplights under that roof entryway, and that is the only site lighting that is proposed at this point in time. So that uplight, they feel will sufficiently light the parking lot without having any light that goes off-site. So I think that's it in a nutshell. I should mention that the reduced impervious coverage, we're going from 19.6% down to 18.7%. So we are making a bad situation a little bit better by capturing the roof drainage and reducing the amount of impervious coverage as well. So I'm open for any questions.
We are circulating the architectural plans.
Are there any sidewalk improvements or anything like that proposed?
No. Right now, there is no sidewalk coming along the mobile station. So to put a sidewalk in along the road, as the town staff suggested, would not get used by anyone. So we have the walkway right now that goes from this driveway access to the front door here. We propose to maintain that stone that is existing now as a walkway to get from the front door to this entryway. We don't feel that a sidewalk along the road is necessary or would be used by anyone.
It's not leading to anywhere, right? It's your fault.
Excuse me?
If it's not leading to anywhere.
Exactly.
I understand. Got a couple of
Sidewalk on the other side of the street.
Yes.
That goes all the way from Route 1 to
Right.
down to Water Street.
And if they did have it in front of mobile, it would make a little more sense, but
Yeah, exactly.
maybe down the road. Frank, you want to read us the letter?
So the first one comes from Kevin McGee, dated November 6th, and to the Guilford Planning and Zoning. The applicant is proposing a site plan modification which include reconstructing the entrance to the building, the installation of an ADA ramp, paved ADA parking spot, stone walkway in front of the building, and new leaching system. The applicant has completed a checklist to guide low-impact development and best management practice in utilizing several items such as converting pavement area in front of the building to lawn and redirecting roof water from a portion of the building into the infiltration galleries. The site plans for the project has sedimentation and erosion control procedures that are in compliance with 273-97B subsection 6 of the zoning regulations. In order to make sure that the natural resources are protected, I recommend the following condition of approval. 1, the existing erosion control measure be properly installed, and the Town of Guilford zoning enforcement officer shall be notified to inspect the sedimentation and erosion control measures prior to any site work. Soil stockpiles should be contained by silt fencing and/or hay bale. Soil erosion and sedimentation control measures shall be maintained until vegetation is established or suitable material is installed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement. Good? Pretty standard. And then Dennis gave you another one on November 6th as well, the Director of Health. To the Planning and Zoning, the applicant's proposed spot facility will require installation of a new dedicated septic system to accommodate the additional wastewater discharge. Soil tests conducted on the site indicated the presence of suitable soils for installation of new code-complying septic. Based upon the soil test results and the site plan review, it's recommended that the applicant's proposed change in use be approved with the following condition. 1, that your septic system designed for the day spa shall be prepared by a professional engineer. Aaron's is a memorandum, so.
Discussion? Questions?
Did review the plans at their meeting on the 9th of October. I don't think you have this in your packet, but their recommendation is as follows. Mr. Thompson made a motion that DRC recommends P&Z approval of this application with the following stipulations. The entry element should be slightly wider and slightly less steep, to be determined by the designer. 1 to 2 street trees should be planted. The head of the storefront system should align more closely with the eastern window head. The final eastern window treatments are to be reviewed by the Design Review Committee. The color of the low building should be changed when the opportunity presents itself.
The existing structure connects to an old home, right? That's where Old Twop Home is?
Yes.
I'm confused by the orientation of the plan, and I can't see it in the drawing. I'm just wondering how those two join and where the pavers are going.
Yeah, the language school is in the old house portion over on this side, and the spa is proposed to be on the flat roof building over to the south.
So that the entrance will be on the same, I
Yeah,
guess,
the
street
the
front
entry,
entrance?
the entry to Walgreens back parking lot is
Right.
right here, and that entry is right on that corner of the building here.
The recommendations of design review are advisory, correct?
Correct.
And obviously, you're not the architect, you're the engineer.
Exactly.
Did you discuss the idea of planting 1 or 2 street trees?
I was told that they did not want to plant any trees. There are multiple trees on the site. They do plan on doing some landscaping in front of the building, but they do not have a landscape plan. So I can't answer for the architect or the client as to what, where, anything to do with that, but, you know, I do know that they're taking out the gravel parking area and in the front of the building, putting in grass. I would imagine they're going to pretty it up some, but what or where, I don't have a plan for that.
In terms of the architecture, the architect and the Design Review Committee, at the Design Review Committee meeting, were very much on the same page. You know, I don't know whether all those recommendations are actually incorporated in this final plan, on the plan that we have, but they seem to be talking the same language and seem to be, you know, like on friendly terms for whatever that amounts to. The committee did recommend that at least 1 and preferably 2 street trees be planted.
We would hope that the applicant would take the recommendations of the Design Review Committee seriously. And obviously, we can't require them, but, you know, we have them as a resource for us, so.
Right. So it's going from paint store to spa, so is that retail now and it's going to service oriented?
Personal service.
Personal service.
It's a permitted use in that zone.
Well, so we don't have to worry about parking because it's going to be
No,
less
there's
than
plenty.
retail's required.
And there's a lot of parking there, really.
All right.
Yeah, the parking calculations here. Per the regulations, we are required to have 16 spaces, and we have 19 spaces on the site.
19?
We have 19 on the site.
I think I've only seen 2 cars every time.
Exactly.
They used to be Ed's Enterprise.
It did.
Yeah.
The bike shop.
Bought all my Estes rockets there.
Yeah.
I think my Schwinn was bought there or something.
Yeah.
Are there any further questions from the commissioners? And as there are no audience members, we will waive that portion of the questioning. Not that this is a public hearing anyway, so we don't have that. We have there's a motion here. Would someone like to propose that? Anyone?
I'll make a motion.
Got it?
What page was it? I'm sorry. Last page? Oh, it's the first page. First page, proposed motion, 258-260 River Street LLC. Voted the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a site application for 258-260 River Street LLC, map 46, lot 48, for a spa as shown on zoning location survey site plan property of 258-260 River Street LLC, dated October 15th, 2019, revised November 5th, 2019, prepared by Anderson Engineering and Surveying Associates, and renovation clearly 260 River Street, dated November 5th, 2019, prepared by Duo Dickinson Architect. This application is approved with the following conditions. Number one is the site plan be revised to show at least one and preferably two street trees as recommended by the Design and Review Committee. Number two, no other recommendations.
Recommendation for a condition there.
Okay.
Number two.
Kevin
And Kevin
Per
McGee.
Kevin McGee's
Yeah.
recommendation was.
Right.
This application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with zoning code.
She was right, that tree.
No, I mean, I think, I don't want to impose a big expense upon people, but they also did waive all of the parking lot requirements, or the parking lot requests for paving to just do the one little area, so I'm not sure that, just asking for 2 trees is a huge ask. But
Do we ever put design review into, as our advisory?
Right.
We don't normally.
No, we don't require it, I don't think so. It's just advisory,
Yeah,
so.
but we can, though. I mean,
Yeah.
otherwise, what's the point of having them review anything if we're not going to take their recommendations?
It's a nice suggestion.
I guess, but
Are they avoiding the trees because it could be a big trees to become a mess and destroy with their root system, or what's their objection to trees?
Well, I think their objection to having a tree right in the front yard is we have a walkway, a flagpole sign, and the paper walk, and where is the tree going to fit in to that aspect here? There's an existing tree here, there's existing trees over here. This is, a lawn with a hedgerow. Where are they going to put a tree? That, I think that is their argument as to, okay, we want a tree, where are we gonna put it, and why?
Design review did not.
When I talked to Aaron, I didn't get a copy of the final decision letter from Design Review, but she read the minutes, and they were going back and forth from what Aaron was saying with the minutes. There were some people that wanted the trees, some people wanted 2 trees, some people were like, no, we don't need any trees, and I didn't get the final letter on the
There was no letter on that. I just read the minutes of their meeting. They did look at the plans and discuss whether or not they thought they wanted to recommend street trees, and they have at least one landscape architect, in fact, a highly qualified landscape architect on the design review. Actually, there's 2 landscape architects. So I believe they did determine that there was room for 1 or 2 street trees. Not to argue with Todd, but they felt that there was room. They wouldn't have recommended it just on principle. They recommended it based on their review of the plan.
Is it going to improve anything?
Is it what?
Is it going to improve anything?
That's a judgment that, you have to make, I guess.
Air quality, yeah.
Most people, Alan, most people like trees.
Well, here we go again, down a slippery slope. Once
Yeah.
again, we're going in, he's going from retail to service-oriented, arguably less traffic. If they want to do it, they should have the option to do it. We shouldn't be requiring it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just
Well, I mean, unless there's some sort of objective in the town to add
tree-lined
to
streets.
the number of, for the overall aesthetic of the town.
You have the 2 gas stations, you got the Walgreens. It's a business corner.
Address Jamie's question. It's not required in the zoning code.
Yeah.
It is a policy of the town, as has expressed numerous places that we encourage street tree planting, especially associated with commercial development to the maximum extent possible. General principle, all things being equal, we like to see street trees planted. We like to see sidewalks for new commercial development. They don't always make sense. Like, I agree, I don't think it makes sense here. It's not required in the zoning code. However, it's a policy of the town, and the Planning and Zoning Commission has expressed in a number of your documents to encourage that to happen. So you need to make a judgment.
But we didn't do trees in front of U-Haul, right? Or did we?
Oh, yeah, there was extensive
Oh, that's right, yeah.
extensive street tree planting in front of U-Haul, absolutely.
My inclination is to encourage the applicant to seriously consider this for the sake of the town, but I'm not totally in favor of requiring a tree planting of 1 or 2 trees. But that's me, and I'm open for discussion on that.
I'm honestly fine with requiring trees. I mean, again, I feel like we have the design review committee as a town for a reason, and we should really respect them. You know, again, it's advisory, but we shouldn't just dismiss everything that they come up with out of hand necessarily either.
Do we have
So
a
we should
habit
take it into
of
consideration.
Do we have a habit of dismissing what the design and commute?
No, probably the opposite.
Typically, they make recommendations, the architect comes back and demonstrates how they reacted to the recommendations, and then we make a deliberation from there. Of course, that didn't happen in this case.
And it doesn't hurt that the actual applicant himself or herself is not here, and the architect is not here to provide some input. I would hate to make a choice. I would hate to make make a decision. I mean, I would like to hear, I mean, I'm almost in favor of postponing it. We'll get them here if it's going to make things easier. But I mean, I'm with Dennis, with Philip on this one, and Frank. Like, it's a recommendation. You have J.J. Phillips with their oil tanks, adjacent. They've got enough shrubs around that. You've got the wetlands. 2 trees, is it going to make a difference? You got the gas stations, the cars producing smog all day right there, so,
As someone who lives on a street that I think there's way too much speeding going on, and I know that this street in that area is definitely one space, I feel like the presence of sidewalks and people walking and street trees somehow attenuate that type of activity.
It just soften the whole industrial
Yeah, so I'm all
look.
for the.
So, I'm going to vote amongst us with respect to the condition. I'm going to make a motion that the condition of street trees be waived.
We have a motion that was seconded that includes the street trees, or do you want to take it out of your motion? We prepared.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
I recommend that it's suggested.
Okay, so it's not a requirement, okay.
I like the recommendation of a suggestion. Works for me.
They don't have it, I'm not going to hold them fire.
Who seconded that application, that motion? Oh, it wasn't seconded?
No, it wasn't seconded
Oh,
Second. Okay, we've had discussion. All in favor? Thank you.
So the
Plant
motion-
trees, huh?
the motion
Come on, make us look
consider-
good.
The motion includes a recommendation for street trees, but it's
To
not
seriously consider the recommendation.
it's not a condition.
We actually have to pause our meeting for a very quick break while Peter changes the tape. No business will be conducted while we're out. Thank you. No, don't we have to? It's never- Having conducted no business during our absence, we will continue with our meeting. Next item is Robert Mangino, architect, owner, PDC LLC, Boston Post Road, map 78, lot 13, zone TS2, site plan modification to allow for sale of landscaping materials, including tractors and tools. Do we have the applicant? Someone like to make a motion to table?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much. I don't have the bond execution, an application to be, we have a public hearing set for J.J. Sullivan, 229 River Street, map 39, lot 12, zone C4, coastal area site plan and site plan revisions for grading and retaining wall, plumbing, and electrical upgrades associated with expansion of containment area for for 200,000-gallon heating oil storage tank. Public hearing set for 11/20, just for anyone that's watching on TV. This is to enhance the containment mechanisms of the tank that's already there. So it's improvements. So, other commission business, correspondence, I don't see any. Two other, execute bond, Brian Ferris Construction Landscape Completion Bond, Northern Heights Subdivision, and final plan for PRD map 129, lot 2, zone R8, Crooked Hill Road, for $13,430. This is
a subdivision that's been developed. It's been completed for several years. The landscaping was not completed. We do have a bond, and we're asking you to recommend to the Board of Selectmen, who have to actually take this action, to call the bond, which will enable us to collect the $13,430 from the bank and then put the landscaping in pursuant to the plan.
Does everyone get that? We good?
Makes sense.
So basically, the developer said, I'm going to do these site improvements, and they finished the project and didn't do them, but that's why we have them do a bond. So that's why we're cashing the bond, so we can do the improvements that they've put forward.
That's it.
In a nutshell. So there's a motion here voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Board of Selectmen execution of a bond for landscape completion at Northern Heights subdivision in the amount of $13,430.
Second.
Discussion?
Just what they add for inflation.
We'll see what, maybe they get a great deal on stuff this time of year, I don't know. I'll call the vote. All in favor of referring this to the Board of Selectmen? Thank you. Aye. The CEO is not here. Approval of the bills. Would someone like to make a motion to approve Shore Publishing for $342?
So moved.
Second.
Has anyone ever, are we paying too much? Like, do we have, I don't think we have a treasurer for our commission or anything. I don't know what the rates are for publishing, but.
They're actually pretty inexpensive compared to New Haven Register. New Haven Register would charge us $700 for one ad.
Yeah, my newspaper's pretty cheap.
You better abstain. Expensive, I mean. All in favor of approving the bills?
I get to abstain on that one.
Okay, there we go. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. I had a chance to review the minutes, and they appear to be substantially correct. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I will make a motion.
10:16.
I will make a motion.
We have a second. Okay?
Oh,
Still looking for a second then.
second.
There we go. Did you make the motion?
I thought you
both of them.
Did he make it? Oh, I thought you made the motion.
Okay. So we got a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes? A motion to adjourn? All in favor? Good night. Who's on first? Yeah.